The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
Georgian lari ends the working week with strengthening. As a result of February 18 trading, the Georgian national currency strengthened against the US dollar, euro and British pound. The National Bank has approved a code of ethics for debt collection by financial institutions and changes in the regulation on protecting the rights of consumers by financial institutions when providing services. The Competition Agency has published an interim report on fuel market monitoring. According to the document, the fuel market in Georgia is assessed as competitive. In the same report, the agency calls on oil companies to refrain from announcing price increases or decreases in advance. As of February 15, more than 2 billion lari has been mobilized in the pension fund, including the return accrued as a result of investment activities totaling 292 million lari. The current annual profitability is around 12%, while the profitability from the day of launching the fund stands at 33%. According to the pension agency, 1,250,000 citizens are registered in the pension scheme, while more than 1,500 people have benefited from the accumulative pensions so far. And this is the Checkpoints presented to you by its author Elena Gvangilashvili. It's 10 p.m. sharp and the team has worked hard to give you all the details on business and economics. Let me open the program with good news on successful Georgian. David Tsiklauri, who has more than 15 years of experience in the financial sector, has been appointed to the role of chairman of the management board of Access Bank. David Tsiklauri has extensive experience within the financial sector. Prior to his appointment at Access Bank, he served as a non-executive director at Hamkor Bank and Companion Bank and was an investment board member at the Georgian Pension Fund. Throughout 2014-2019, David Tsiklauri held executive roles at the largest financial institutions of Georgia, Bank of Georgia, where he held a position of a CFO, and TBC Bank, where he led corporate and investment bank as a deputy CEO. Prior to that, David held various roles at Deutsche Bank, London, with the capital markets and treasury solutions team. He has an MBA degree from London Business School. Speaking of success, let us then see what the most influential business magazine, Forbes in Georgia, has to offer to its readers and to us, followers of Forbes.g and BM.g, in its new March edition 2022. Enjoy the best guide to success.
If you dream of studying at the world's leading university, it is now much easier to make your dream come true because Berkeley's innovative teaching is already available in Georgia. This means that the University of Georgia, in cooperation with Future Laboratory in UC Berkeley, is launching a master's program in innovation and entrepreneurship. At the helm of management are Goka Topuria and Irakli Kashibadze, who are the main characters of the February issue, a cover story of Forbes Georgia. They answer our questions about the huge news in detail, so mark the date in September 2022 when the master's course officially opens. Read more in the new February issue of Forbes Georgia.
We present you the most profitable Georgian higher education institutions, where the main focus of the two most profitable universities is the field of medicine. What does the 10-year strategy document on education and science tell us? David Siramua shares his views on the topic. In the leaderboards, we also count the most expensive arbitration disputes of the year for Georgia. In the analytics column, you will find out about cryptocurrency in Georgia. In the new issue, you will read an interview with Noshrevan Namoradze, the founder of Krtsanisi Villa Residence, about the big project and innovative plans. We talked about infrastructure projects and the history of the development of the company Dagi with its founder, Gogi Gulordava, who perceives the project of Dagi to be the business card of the country. In the economic column, we will review Georgia's foreign trade in 2021 and the share of Russian gas in Georgia, which by the way has doubled. We will also introduce you to the Georgian startup EduPay, which raised about 300,000 lari in the first round of financing and is already looking forward to entering the world market. For many more insights into the business and economic affairs, read Forbes Georgia.
More business in our focus. Here is the weekly news bulletin that our reporter Natia Taktakishvili kindly pulled together for the checkpoints.
Green Energy is implementing one of the most powerful solar power plant projects in Georgia. David Chwangiradze, the company's founder, told BMG. The solar power plant is being built in Kaspi and its capacity will be 1.1 megawatt. The power plant will serve 3 enterprises. The investment value of the project is $610,000 USD. Kaspi solar power plant is one of the most powerful power plants in Georgia, which will be put into operation in the near future. Company Green Energy appeared on the market in 2016. The company employs 20 people. Startup Chestnut plans to set up refrigeration plants so the products will be offered to the customers through the ER. As Guga Gudadze, the founder of Chestnut, told BMG, they are considering to rent a refrigeration farm in Guri at the first stage, and after finding the necessary finances, they will have their own refrigerators. According to him, the plans include selling the products at winter seasons, including Bakuriani and Godavari. In addition, Chestnut packages will be sold online. Chestnut appeared on the market in 2019. The startup was founded with investment of 3,000 gelari. Chestnut owns one facility in Lasalidze Street and employs 3 people. Ultrasox plans to expand its exports on the Sicilian market this year. The company started exporting in early 2022 in 3 Sicilian cities and was represented in 5 stores in the region. Due to the high demand, socks are now included in several dozen facilities. As Reso Beselashvili, co-founder of the company, told BMG, the existing design as well as socks are created exclusively for Sicilian market. This year, KTW Group plans to expand its export markets, for which the company has already begun negotiations with the Netherlands and Dubai. According to the company, in 2021, 90% of alcohol beverages produced by them were exported. KTW Group products are currently sold in more than 25 countries, including Europe, Asia, and the USA. The company now produces about 90 types of alcohol products. Opening of Paragraph Tabori Hotel and Golf Club is scheduled for the fall of 2023. As BMG was told by Bidina Ivanishvili's Tourist Development Fund, the opening of the hotel complex was planned for 2022, but the process was hindered by the pandemic. According to the fund, total investment of the project is 128 million USD. The project of a hotel and golf club on Mountain Tabori started in 2018 and its finish was originally planned for 2021. Hotel Panorama Bakhmaro is open. The hotel combines 9 rooms and can accommodate 26 people. As Georgi Kechagmadze, the founder of the hotel, told BMG, more than 400,000 gelari was spent on the construction of Panorama Bakhmaro, most of which is a bank loan and part of which is a personal finance. The hotel has already hosted guests. A group of tourists will visit Panorama Bakhmaro from February 25. Panorama Bakhmaro employs 5 people. Company Natural will export 500,000 bottles of honey vodka to China. According to the founder of the company, Vaja Chapichadze, now they are in the process of negotiation and will probably be able to start exporting in the second half of the year. According to the founder of the company, after the first successful exports, they will be able to double the export volume with the available resources. It should be noted that honey vodka will be sold in Chinese market under the name of Taplucha. The export price of the product is 65 gelari. Georgian Tourist Development Fund opens a 4-star hotel in Sighnari. The investment value exceeds 27 million USD. It's noteworthy that the fund planned to open the hotel in spring of 2020. However, as the fund explained, the dates have changed due to the pandemic. 130-room hotel will house spa and fitness centers, an outdoor and indoor pool, a wine bar, a cellar, a restaurant, lounge bar with 360-degree views and a large conference hall. The Tourist Development Fund plans to open a hotel in Sirnari by the end of this year.
And our already traditional question in the checkpoints, what's made in Georgia? This time we will tell you about the new Georgian brand of cosmetics with a very original title, Zarbazani, which in translation means cannon. The founder of the brand, Nana Davitadze, says that if a wine in Georgian can be compared to a gun, then why can't the cosmetics be compared to Zarbazani? The main secret here is that all the natural cosmetics are made from grape pips. Our reporter Salome Jipashvili talked to Nana Davitadze.
I am Nana Davitadze, manager partner of the company Zarbazani. The company Zarbazani has been operating in the market for several years, producing wine. Just recently, the idea came to us to produce wine cosmetics. Georgia is the homeland of wine. We considered that Georgian wine deserved to diversify the product range and offer customers a variety of means of wine consumption, including shampoos, conditioners, shower gels, liquid soaps, massage oils, and etc. This is a list of products that we produce from Georgian wine. These products are made from grape seed oil, aloe vera, and natural ingredients. Our products are Georgian and of premium quality. We have 4 wines, Khonjkarar, Katsiteli, Ojaleshi, and Tsaperavi, mainly designed for different hair types. About $500,000 was invested in the enterprise, which was built in Tsaukisi. We didn't change the name of the company when we started producing cosmetics. In fact, Zarbazani is a village near Nice in France, one of the largest wine-producing settlements. Our products are expensive since they are based on natural ingredients. The market sale price for each shampoo is about 45 lari. It has been a month since we entered the market, but we have already started to enter the Georgian market very actively. At the same time, we're intensely negotiating exports with Ukraine, Russia, Kazakhstan, and Eastern European countries. Wild Berry Network is something like Amazon, but in Russia. They already have prepared advertising material for us and conducted video shoots. Our products will be placed there at the end of the month. In the near future, we're going to release a body scrub, sea salt, and a lip balm. We have big plans for the future.
Let us be clear, in every business, quality is the best competitive advantage. Quality is also something that can be measured. From July the 1st this year, Georgia's pharma market will start implementing GMP and GDP standards in practice. This is thought to raise the quality of locally produced pharmaceuticals. This, in its turn, demands companies to have a special entity within the organization that is solely responsible for monitoring and controlling the quality. Our reporter, Tatia Chapichadze, visited our partner GM Pharma to answer the simple question, are they ready to meet the standard?
A pharmaceutical company operating according to good manufacturing practice standards should have a quality control department as an independent entity. The department has 1 or more laboratories to ensure that all quality control measures are carried out efficiently and effectively. GM Pharmaceuticals has 2 quality control laboratories, a physiochemical and microbiological control laboratory. The function of laboratories include receipt or control of raw materials, routine analysis on the control of intermediate and finished products, monitoring of environmental conditions of the enterprise, validation verification of methods, process delay and cleaning validation of analysis. It also includes participation in the study of any inconsistent results as well as participation in the study of deviations. The laboratories are equipped with the latest equipment. We cooperate with companies such as Shimadzu, Sartorius, Mettler Toledo, WISE, and others. I will also point out that the Quality Control Lab is working in accordance with primary standards, such as European American LGC primary standards. Up to 850 tests are conducted monthly in the Quality Control Laboratory and up to 650 tests in the Microbiological Laboratory. GM Pharmaceuticals has been based on good manufacturing practice requirements since its inception, as evidenced by numerous inspections and audits by regulators in various countries. The company holds several certificates of quality compliance, such as Certificate of Conformity of Production with GMP by British company Health Site Information Services Ltd. Since 2007, as well as Certificate of Good Manufacturing Practice PIC issued by the inspection of the Ukrainian regulatory body since 2014. The latter is required for exports. I would also like to add that the company produces more than 100 products in 10 countries around the world. An official representative office has been opened in 5 of them, where more than 200 people are employed. It is planned to add representation in several more countries in the near future. Since 2004, the company's quality assurance system has been awarded the ISO 9001 certification of compliance with the international standard. Since 2008, GMP Quality Control Laboratory has been accredited by the National Accreditation Authority for ISO 1725 compliance, and since 2019, the laboratories have undergone microbiological control. Laboratories undergo annual audits every year to maintain their accredited status. We have submitted an application for compliance certification with the Georgia National GMP Standard. For this purpose, the company is scheduled for the National Regulatory Authority inspection in March 2022. Having well-qualified staff in both production and laboratories is one of the requirements of the GMP standard and is the direct responsibility of management. Staff selection is a multi-step procedure and the sources are varied, including the higher education institutions in the country. The company has signed a memorandum with the Faculty of Pharmacy of the Medical State University, which allows graduate students to use the Quality Control Laboratory as an infrastructure as well as human resources for master's studies. The training system implemented in the company and consequently in the laboratories ensures the training of qualified staff with the involvement of invited specialists and foreign consultants. Staff competency is assessed by participating in the practical results of these exercises, as well as in qualification tests by participating in annual inter-laboratory and in-laboratory comparisons of blind samples. Both laboratories participate in international inter-laboratory studies in an average of 3 to 3 rounds per year with a pre-agreed plan. A lot of research has been conducted. The next 2 years are planned with the help of the global and leading British company in the field, LGC Group. Based on these and other criteria, the teaching process is evaluated and measures are taken to improve the system. Part of the development of the laboratory staff is the periodic two-way feedback between the laboratory staff and the immediate supervisors to identify their and the company's development needs and to address other relevant issues.
Good luck to GM Pharma, and before saying goodbye for today, I will use the rest of the time for some exclusive interviews to show you how one of the leading international investment bank, Renaissance Capital, and one of the leading think tanks, PMCG, evaluate the chances of Russia-Ukraine full-fledged war, the impact that Western sanctions might have on Russia, and what could be some of the spillover effects. I will start with Renaissance Capital, a leading emerging and frontier markets investment bank, providing access to over 50 markets across the globe with operations in Africa, Central and Eastern Europe, North America and the Middle East. The Checkpoint talked to Sofia Donets. I've read your recent analysis on what's going on in between Ukraine and Russia and the whole world, basically. And you wrote this very interesting sentence that the war with Ukraine is something unthinkable for the absolute majority of Russians. They are not protesting against invasion just because they do not believe in it, we assume. Does this assumption still hold true? What we are seeing right now between the tensions between Ukraine and Russia? Because I'm conducting this interview with you, keeping in mind that everything might change in a second.
Yeah, sure.
And talking about economic sanctions might be like totally irrelevant at the moment that we are on air. Do you have such doubts as well? As Renaissance Capital, of course.
Still have a strong feeling and a strong belief that the military invasion was not what Russia was targeting from the very start. So that's really important to understand that intrinsically, I would say that any military conflict between Russia and Ukraine would be strongly negative for both domestic and external sentiments, even if there will be no sanctions on the table. So it's a very negative scenario, but luckily we do not expect this to happen, and we do not assume that it was somehow targeted from the start of this escalation. And Russia has continuously reiterated that the invasion is not planned. And what we had as an update today, probably some relief. We already passed this checkpoint, which US and UK named as a alleged invasion time, and what we see that the situation is safe. So we keep our view that the de-escalation is the most likely scenario, though we do not expect it to be fast, and we do not rule out that we will still see additional sanctions from US imposed on Russia, though not tough but moderate.
What do these sanctions change in this equation? Because you also write that cost benefits for Russia are not supportive for the invasion scenario, and even if there are no sanctions, it still will be very tough on Russia's economy. But what do, for example, tough sanctions change in this equation?
Well, when we're talking about sanctions now, I would divide them into two large groups. One, which are not that likely, which are tough ones, and the other, which is not that scary. Yeah. So when we talk about moderate sanctions, which are not that scary, we're talking about such sanctions, for example, sanctions on individuals, sanctions on government entities, sanctions probably on some government financial corporations, but not on banks, not on corporates. Probably additional restrictions on the secondary trading of newly issued government debt, which was discussed before the escalation, like starting from the previous September and after the previous sanctions of 2021. These are moderate sanctions. This could have a very, very minor effect on the long run. And in the short run, I would argue that we could even see a relief from the market rather than stress. Yeah, so as soon as the market will have a news flow on sanctions, but we'll see that the sanctions are moderate, that could be a relief. Like it worked in 2019 or 2020, 2021. Yeah, so that's pretty much the same. If we're talking about tough sanctions, I would say that, again, they are highly unlikely. Given that they are costly for both sides. Yeah, if we're talking about trade sanctions, then we will see some negative and undesired effects potentially on Europe, which are quite sensitive to fuel export from Russia. If we're talking about financial sanctions on corporates, well, probably it's not that much a pain for US to hurt those US investors who hold Russian assets. Yeah, this is not it's not such a large portfolio if we look at the overall US portfolios. Yeah, but in the end of the day, it's a very negative case study. So it could have like a domino effect on sentiments towards emerging markets and sentiments of US investors towards the rule of the games, the rules of the game. Yeah, so that could be a negative case study. If we're talking about SWIFT, well, it's a very, very unlikely. So it's even not on the table according to EU communication. Yeah, but if we will fantasy and let's discuss like some apocalyptic scenarios, then okay, if we will, if US and EU will switch off SWIFT for Russia, then how we will how will the payments for export for Russian fuel will be made? It's a very tricky game.
Still, I want to discuss some of this, both important sanctions, as you call them, tough, really tough sanctions, and milder sanctions as well. So what we see from the OFAC, it's like 13 major Russian companies, more than 275 of them subsidiaries and affiliates on the SSI list, right? So these include 5 large state-owned banks. This includes state-owned oil companies, state-owned defense and high-tech conglomerates, and also there will be some restrictions on the sanctions related to deep water, Arctic offshore, or shale oil projects. Are these, what type of sanctions are these, and what would it cost Russia's economy?
It's really hard to talk about like precise quantitative effect of the sanctions given the lack of precedents, the relative precedents. But what we could mention, which is that Russia, if not sanction-proof, but at least it is a very sanction-resilient, given its last 7 years experience. So Russia is well prepared. So in any case, first of all, the government is well equipped to react and to offer an assistance for both corporate sector, and the central bank is well equipped to provide assistance for the banking sector. The central bank has 630 billion reserves, which fully covers the total external debt of Russia, which is a big difference from, for example, the 2008 crisis. We also have a very balanced fiscal position with the government debt below 20% of GDP, with a fiscal surplus already this year and the previous year, with the fiscal savings in the National Wealth Fund close 11% of GDP. We also have like very moderate metrics of external debt, which is below 30% of GDP, and again, fully covered by external reserves. And probably another important thing is that the banking sector have a well-balanced position. Again, it's a huge difference with 2020, 28, 2029 experience. The banks were badly hurt by that experience, and now international assets of the banking sector are $100 billion above the total foreign liabilities. So the position is well balanced and well covered. Again, we also have a current account surplus, which was record high previous year. So again, all scenarios will for sure and primarily have very negative effect on sentiments. So we for sure will see an outflow from the financial markets. And if we're talking about like potential outflow from financial markets, we should mention like from the government bonds market, we could see an outflow of up to $40 billion. And from the equity market, it could be the same or more than that. But it's only a case for very, very negative and highly unlikely scenarios.
You also mentioned SWIFT, right? I read some of the estimates and the projections. For example, Carnegie Moscow Center has said that it would shrink Russia's GDP by 5% if it were disconnected from SWIFT.
Well, I think that's the big question when we're talking about SWIFT is not focused on the financial markets. Yeah. So, but primarily on the all kinds of payments which are made for external trade. Just because when the country is cut from SWIFT, we're talking about fast increase of the all transaction costs for all operations. If we're talking about whether Russia will survive this, yes, Russia will survive this. So again, we've mentioned FX reserves, we mentioned the well-equipped central bank, we mentioned well-equipped the banking sector. The Russia also have its domestic payment system and have some options to reroute its operations. But in the end of the day, like it worked after 2014, 2015, there is not zero probability of counter sanctions from Russian side. So if we're talking about like cutting off from SWIFT, so whether we should talk about like cutting off from Russian gas for Europe, yeah. So it's like a very tough sanctions with no zero probability for counter sanctions, and that's why I think that it's not like, you know, the only direct the effect of what we should be focused on, but we also should look at potential second round effects. Second round effects could be quite huge and could be shifted from financial side to the trade side, and the trade side is highly sensitive for Europe.
What makes you say that Russia will survive this tough section of being disconnected from SWIFT?
Well, again, we've already discussed that Russia has rebalanced its external and fiscal position quite well during the last 7 years. So this means that the Russian financial system could function even in the regime of no availability of euro and US financing. Again, we also have, and we also should look at Asian markets, and I don't think that it will be equally unavailable even for the scenario of tough sanctions. And we also see that the domestic financial market has expanded quite a lot during the previous year. The dollarization of the Russian economy is really moderate, with the proportion of dollars and euros in deposits decreased below 30%, and with quite increased domestic bid for all kinds of Russian assets, with the decreasing share of non-residents both on equity market and government bond market. So it is again, nobody wants the Russia to be, at least from my side, like a Russian-based investor, nobody wants to live in a country which is disconnected from international financial market in this globalized reality. So probably we all will have to look for another job if we will have these tough sanctions. But at the same time, if we pose the question is whether Russia could survive this in a strategical or systemically important point of view, then the answer will be yes. And I think that the good question is whether we should talk about whether these kinds of sanctions will work. And my answer will be that it depends on how you will pose the question. Work for what? If we're talking about that sanctions should work to harm someone's economy, then yes, it will harm the economy. If sanctions should work to change the country behavior, then for sure it won't. So, and in this sense, it will be like a kind of pointless sanctions, so which will not drive the change of the behavior of the Russian authorities.
Another big topic is the Nord Stream. For example, stopping this project, how do you see the perspective there?
Well, I think it's a very important starting point is that Nord Stream 2 is not used and not crucial for current amounts and volumes of Russian export of gas. So one should understand that the Russian gas contracts, long-term gas contracts, are not sensitive to Nord Stream 2 at this point. So the Nord Stream 2 was prepared as an alternative, but not as a crucial thing without which we could see a decrease of Russian export. Yeah. So it's not the thing that it's not like cutting a part of Russian export. It's like cutting a perspective increase of Russian export or perspective rerouting of Russian export. So it's about the potential. It's not about current export volumes. So in this sense, the effect of the cutting of not approving of the end of the Nord Stream 2 project will have close to zero effect on current volumes and current flows of Russian gas export. Yeah, so that's very important starting point to understand. For sure, it will be like a kind of a pity to have all these costs which were distributed toward the construction of Nord Stream 2 sank. Yeah, so the sunk costs of this will be quite sensitive. But in the end of the day, these costs of Nord Stream 2 were already financed, and they were already there, and they were already well chewed and swallowed, let's say, by the Gazprom balance. Yeah, so that's not a question of broken liabilities or defaulting or having a need to cut the volumes of exports. It's only about the potential. It's only about the will of Russia to redistribute the gas export, which could be cut by the if the Nord Stream 2 is not launched and not certified. So that's not about the current volumes.
Yeah, but considering the fact that economy for Russia is still politics, if you look at Georgia and Ukraine and East Europe and that part of the then this is still a big blow because of that diversification or whatever Russia calls why it needs Nord Stream 2. It's not about expanding or increasing its exports, but it's also cutting off some countries and not giving them the transit flow, right? So that so can we say that at this point, all these economic sanctions and talking about the economic sanctions, there is more has more to do with politics rather than economics?
Sure. It's a very good point. Again, if we're talking about Nord Stream, again, it's totally about the politics, not the economics, at least at this point. If we're talking about like financial markets, it's also about politics. And again, in this sense, there could be like intermediate scenarios. Not necessarily we will have like tough sanctions, but still we could have scenarios with moderate sanctions and like a negative dynamics of sentiments toward Russia, or probably the very slow improvement of sentiments towards Russia. So the kind of a stagnation. So that's a again, it's a whole book of scenarios.
So when we mentioned some of the companies that are being sanctioned, for example, we have VTB in Georgia, and VTB Georgia is also on the list of sanctions, and more companies are present in Georgia, right? Internal RAO is present, Rosneft, Gazprom Export, even Lukoil, which Lukoil Georgia is not on the list.
Again, I would highlight here that if we're talking about moderate sanction, then we do not expect any corporate sanction to take place, or even like banking sector sanctions for tradable and for market banks. So that's in this sense, we will also we could only see spillovers in terms of sentiments. And in terms of sentiments, what we saw during previous year that for example, all the CIS region, CIS plus, let's say, region was somewhat sensitive to the situation in Russia or Russia and Ukraine, but there were some more correlated, let's say, markets and less correlated markets with Russia. And I think it's a good news for Georgia that Georgia was among those who is relatively low correlated with Russia. I think that in terms of moderate sanctions, and probably like tougher version of sanctions, the effect will primarily spread via trade balances and via dynamics of currencies. And again, if we look at the correlation between currencies of the region, Georgian lari have one of the lowest correlations. Of course, there could be a hit on sentiments, a hit on trade or services flows. Yeah. But in the end of the day, it could only be too sensitive for the region if we're talking about the toughest version of sanctions, with again a very low probability scenarios.
Let us sum up our conversation. And what is your main message at this point to the investors that are looking at this whole situation, and there is still high uncertainty of what will actually happen?
I think that my main message from the current standpoint will be that we are not as optimistic to expect a very fast de-escalation, but we still expect de-escalation to take place. And we still see the probability of military invasion scenarios are very low and could only be a result of huge policy mistakes from all sides, which are again, unlikely for us. We still have quite an upside for any kind of de-escalation scenario. And if we're talking about currencies, that could be from 5 to 10% upside. If we're talking about like equity markets, it could be above 10 or even above 20% upside. So despite that, the global situation and global de-risking pose quite a challenge for the CIS region for this year, and for probably the whole emerging markets space for this year, is still probably a nice thing to have, is that the valuation on our market is not that overheated. So we still have a chance to enjoy an upside.
What should Georgia be ready for? For the answer to this question, I approached PMCG, supporting governments, the private sector, as well as international and civil institutions by delivering simple, comprehensive, and progressive services tailored to their needs, focusing primarily on economic development, freedom, and prosperity. Alexei Alexishvili tells me that Russia will have to bear both financial and political costs if the West stands united and imposes sanctions targeting more broadly the Russian elite. What are some of the expectations that PMCG has towards this conflict that we are seeing between Russia and Ukraine, and Russia's predispositions to have a full-fledged war in Ukraine, which is still uncertain to this day?
Still, this is unclear what is expecting to be, or what we have to expect in general, right? So what we see so far is that on one side there are some threats coming from Russia to Ukraine, and on the other side Western countries with the leadership of United States, obviously they are talking about sanctions, which is not clear what type of sanctions they might be. So looking at our previous historical experience, when in 2014 there was some and afterwards there were several attempts of setting up some sanctions. There was not still so-called clear evidence that was so harmful for Russia that they decided to change their attitude on global geopolitics or global security strategy, right? So this shows that we need to think about that more thoroughly.
But if we look more broadly, do you think that economic sanctions in general have this capacity to make, for example, Russian authorities to change their behavior or their attitudes towards this post-Soviet, whatever they are calling this part of the world?
Yes, I think yes. Again, that depends on the depth of the sanctions and the volume of the sanctions. So what we see is that previously having sanctions on particular companies operating in Crimea was not enough. So in that particular case, that the real influence on Russian elite that not created a serious burden for them. So in that case, I think that if we see and look at that from a different perspective, let's say if Western countries decide that now we need to put a burden not only on the companies but also on a country itself, or if they look at the transaction systems, like let's say like in the banking transaction system called SWIFT, for example, and they have some kind of influence on that somehow to use this as an instrument for the sanctions, then definitely that will have some problems for Russia. But at the same time, we need to consider what would be the impact of it on Western countries itself. In that particular case, we are talking about Western European countries and the economies of these countries. So far, again, I mean, looking at the numbers, around 40% of gas consumption or gas consumption of European countries comes on Russian gas, right? So in that particular case, we need to know how they can substitute this one. I mean, what is the alternative source for that?
Which won't be easy.
And that definitely will not be easy. So that means like they will think about that twice or three times than any other country outside of Europe, right? So in this case, whether this is the United States, Canada, or Australia, or Japan, or any others. But on the other side, if you look
and we see that impact particularly on Germany, for example.
Definitely, yes. On the other side, if we look at Russia's economy and the structure of Russia's economy, it's also quite interesting because how self-sustainable Russia's economy is. Because in that case, there are some significant sectors in Russia's economy which is more import dependent. Let's say machineries, and this is chemicals and all these specific products, which is really very important for their industries and production, which is also somehow related to their exports as well. And in that particular case, they cannot easily substitute these imports, which comes from European countries and United States and all other developed countries to Russia. They cannot easily substitute that, because that's also very interesting. Looking at also like economic relationship between Russia and China, that also sees that they are very good, but at the same time, considering China's very pragmatic strategy and approach towards that, they are just looking that they are quite diversified, and they are not just really heavily linked with Russia, and it's not like they can easily substitute.
In my interview with Renaissance Capital, they said that Russia has 630 billion of reserves, so it is well covered. What type of argument is that? It is well covered even for the in-depth sanction. Does that make sense to you?
Actually, yes, that in general that makes sense. But on the other side, we need to know where these reserves are located, right? So usually these reserves are located in Western European countries and the United States. This is how reserves are treated. So this is like, you know, what we can say is that in this particular case, if Western countries and the partnership of Western countries decide that the debt again of these sanctions should be quite deep, and the sanctions itself should be quite heavy. In this case, this reserves issue is also quite important. Is it possible to freeze these reserves? Is it possible to somehow have some impact on these reserves?
Sanction reserves as well.
Yes. So from that perspective, I think there is a very interesting issue, because I mean, on one side they see that, okay, we have reserves, and you know, this is so good that, you know, we don't need. I mean, this is quite enough to maintain our debt services or whatever. But the question is where these reserves are located, and whether there is a specific or the real influence on these reserves, and can sanctions somehow impact on these reserves? This is the question, technically as well as policy-wise, and then of course that will be definitely very important.
Yeah. Another very interesting point was connected with Nord Stream 2. Renaissance Capital's analysis is that, you know, okay, this is a big, for example, financial loss for Russia, but that's it. I mean, this is everything about the future potential, and it does not touch the status quo. Is that an argument for you?
Actually, not completely. Maybe for some extent, because what we are, I mean, looking at the current pipelines of Russian gas supplying Europe. There is a Nord Stream 1, there is one crossing Belarus and Poland, another one Ukraine, and another one is South Stream, right? So if there is a like global decision or Western countries' decision to stop only Nord Stream 2, and in this case, that definitely will have some cost. I mean, this is a loss for Russia, the financial as well as political one, right? Because they already spent a lot of money, and you know, this is like.
That's the message that Eastern European countries might lose their transit potential.
That's right. But the main goal of this particular pipeline was to substitute the Ukrainian one, right? So I mean, if we can, I mean, looking at the historical data of gas transited through Ukraine, that is reducing every year, which means like these Nord Stream 1 and other pipelines, they just, you know, increase their capacity to reduce the transit volume via Ukraine. So in that particular case, Nord Stream 2 would probably be something very important tool to reduce further Ukrainian gas transit, which is also quite like important part for Russia-Ukraine relationship, because in this case Russia would be like less dependent on Ukrainian transit, and that would be quite important for Russia as well. So again, I mean, looking at this particular statement, whether the Nord Stream 2 has significant loss or cost for Russia's future economy, I think that has definitely very important cost. At the same time, this is more political one, whether they are dependent on Ukrainian transit or not, and how heavily they are dependent on Ukrainian transit, right? So I think here question should be also whether and how Europe is ready to take this burden at the same time, whether they are ready for that. Because again, I mean, we mentioned that, you know, 38% of their gas consumption comes from Russia, right? So if that stops or somehow reduced very heavily, what happens then?
What should Georgia be ready for?
That's also quite difficult to say, with a full clarity, or because what we see is that still there are a lot of uncertainties and unclarity what will be there, what type of sanctions there will be, how heavy these sanctions might be, what would be the format of these sanctions, and but we have to be ready for every scenario, like for Georgia's in that case might be many different specific stuff. Looking at our import-export operations with Russia, so our 10% of our import comes from Russia and 14% of our export goes to Russia. But at the same time, very interesting point is that around 90%, 94% of food coming from Russia is really very important, especially in the case when food and food products in general. Wheat is one of the biggest one, right? So in that particular case, the point is how we can adjust. I mean, what would be the policy measure or
Plan B?
What is the plan B in this case? I mean, if we join the sanctions or not join, and how heavily we can join, or how we can maneuver, let's say, and especially in the case when the whole economic situation is quite heavy in terms of inflation that we are facing right now, in terms of many different difficulties that we are facing now. So again, I mean, the point is we need to consider all specific parts to make the particular policy decision.
Where should we stand, which is in the global picture, the right side, so to say?
That's definitely clear. I mean, there is no other way. And that decision, from my point of view, Georgia have made several times, saying that the Georgia's historical places being integrated in Europe. So this is we are part of European family, and that's already decided. And from that perspective, Ukraine is our #1 partner. That's already decided. So there is no other way. There is no other alternative to that.
Thank you. And to end off on a more positive note, let me share with you Guillaume Moulard's story on Gudauri, the place which has become one of the main centers of gravity for Georgia's mountain tourism. This is the story of how one hotel can change the fate of the whole resort. The rest is in Guillaume's feature. Enjoy.
Salme Bitruelas. Today, I'm taking you to Gudauri Ski Resort in Georgia, more precisely to Marco Polo Hotel. Being myself a Belgian citizen, when it was coming to winter sports, I was mostly going to ski in the French Alps because there were the closest ski resorts for us. A couple of years later, I hosted radio and TV shows directly from Savoie Mont Blanc ski resorts in the French Alps as well. When I firstly discovered Marco Polo Hotel in Gudauri last year, I instantly found some similarities with the infrastructures I was used to know from Western Europe. And for proof, this a bit more than 30 years old hotel has European influences and is a pioneer in terms of ski accommodations in Georgia. You will quickly understand why. Follow me.
Gudauri Marco Polo was built in 1988, together with the ski resort actually, and it's all thanks to Soliko Khabeishvili, who was able to reach out to Austrians, and actually the hotel is also quite influenced by Austrians and the Alps. He was the one who saw the potential of the region as a ski resort. So the Austrians, they were also quite interested, and they saw the potential as well. And the hotel was actually constructed together with the ski lifts, and the slopes were all together born. And it was a big thing for Georgians, since it was actually the first pioneer hotel with a brand in Georgia to exist. And it has gained a lot of attention. It has brought a lot of tourists from abroad. And Georgia was finally welcoming tourists around the world to go skiing and explore the Georgian mountains around. And since it also had influence from the Alps, it was also quite familiar to the people abroad that they were visiting ski resorts that was close to the one that they were visiting in Europe.
30 years later, Gudauri Ski Resort, and more specifically Marco Polo Hotel, has succeeded to innovate and adapt to the ski market's evolution to keep on their standard implemented in 1988.
After 30 years, a lot has changed in the resort. A lot of hotels have been built and buildings as apartments and restaurants and other businesses. Also, the hotel has changed. Of course, we tried to remain the origins as it used to be, but since time is changing and people are asking for development, we also try to stay updated. And originally the Austrians built 3 chalets in front of the hotel, which served as a staying accommodation place for the staff and the workers of the hotel. But after a couple of years, the snows have lost its function. We decided to give the chalets a new life and reconstructed it and rebuilt it as a luxurious experience for our guests. One of the most valuable things the ski resort and the hotel has to offer is a ski-in and ski-out experience.
A ski shop to rent the material, as well as being able to get his ski pass and ride on the slopes directly from the hotel, is indeed a plus that Marco Polo is offering. But that's not all.
Besides ski and ski out, the hotel has also a lot to offer in terms of entertainment, indoors or outdoors. In winter, for example, besides skiing, people can enjoy the entertainment center, which has a bowling alley, actually 4 bowling alleys, billiards and computer games. We have a tennis court as well, also a spa and a pool which is overlooking the mountain views. The hotel has also a restaurant by the name Soliko, which is named after the person who has established the ski resort. The Soliko restaurant offers a variety of European and Georgian cuisine. We have a special menu with mountain dishes that are originated from Georgia and have a modern kind of translation. Apart from the main restaurant, the hotel has also a bar and a lounge area, which served as a night club in the evening.
A range of services and offers that contributes to attract customers coming from a bit everywhere, not only from Georgia.
What makes this place valuable for Georgian people is that it offers a certain feeling, experience that many ski resorts don't actually have, even abroad. We have many standard clients that are visiting since its opening, from generation to generation, and even people from the Alps are quite often visiting us.
Going to Gudauri ski resorts as well as Marco Polo Hotel is a real experience. Soliko Khabeishvili managed very good in 1988 to build for skiers a place very similar to what we can observe in famous ski resorts in France, Switzerland or Austria. Even though it has evolved a lot by the years, it succeeded to keep the soul and the main idea of the initial project. A place that are attracting more and more tourists every year, and 2022 sounds already like a great vintage for Marco Polo Gudauri.
Well, that's all for today. Thank you for your time and attention. Don't forget to follow us on Forbes.g and BM.g. We will meet on Sunday. Take care.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.